We're back at Mercedes AMG High Performance Powertrain for another edition of the Formula Student Online Podcast. Let's get into it. And we are back at Mercedes AMG High Performance Powertrain for another interview as part of the Formula Student Online Podcast. It's an interview that I have been really looking forward to since we started doing this podcast. We've interviewed him before, but we thought we'd do it again because after all, he is a Formula Student legend and he's also an integral part of Mercedes AMG HPP. He's a man who needs no introduction, but I have just introduced him. It's Dan Jones. How are you doing, Dan?
Thanks very much, Charles. Good to see you again.
It's good to see you again too. For those who live under a rock with regards to Formula Student and don't know who you are, would you be able to just briefly explain your role both here at Mercedes AMG HPP and also within Formula Student?
Sure. So Formula Student-wise, I've been Chief Judge since 2019, so I took over from Terry Saul when he became President of the IMEC. And there were lots of roles before leading up to that. So I did Formula Student University in 2004 or 2006, competing with the University of Hertfordshire. And then I've just stayed involved with the event competition ever since. I was a design judge initially for the first year, then got involved in scrutineering, became the Chief Scrutineer and did that for many, many years and represented the UK on the International Rules Committee. Did a lot of checking the SESs and everything before then. It wasn't long after I moved to HPP in 2017 from our previous role that trying to do that and working in F1 was too much. So the opportunity to become Chief Judge came along at just the right time. So in HPP, I've been here for 7.5 years now. Current role, I started just over a year and a half ago when we came into operating under a cost cap on the power unit. And so I'm the team leader for the McLaren collaboration group. And it's a small team who's focused on, essentially I am the day-to-day technical contact between HPP and McLaren. And then as we're developing the 2026 power unit, it's been the conduit for traffic going both ways as we're developing. We are Mercedes HPP. We're primarily for the works team, but we're also proud that we deliver power units to a high standard to the customers as well. And obviously, McLaren are doing very well with that at the moment with our product.
So when you were involved in Formula Student as an undergrad, what skills that you learned there have now transferred themselves into your day-to-day liaising between Mercedes HPP and McLaren? Because I imagine there's a lot going on in terms of the communication, which goes back to one of the fundamentals of FS, which is teamwork.
Absolutely, communication is key, but that's just one skill in many, and that is all part of working in a team. And I think to try and zoom out a little bit on there, people often ask me what's the secret sauce for Formula One, and the answer is there isn't one. It's the work ethic, the passion, the attention to detail, being as objective and data driven as much as you can. And Formula Student is very similar. Teams who do well in Formula Student, it's a very similar approach. It's just a different scale, different budget. But fundamentally, Race 1 doesn't move. We know that for 2026, where we're developing, we know where Race 1 is. That's Sparta. And if we're not there, the race is going to happen without us. The Formula Student event happens when it happens. And if you expect to arrive at Silverstone without a tested car that's been well proven and developed and do well, you might be lucky. But to be sure that you're going to do well, then you need to have planned buzzing ahead, know that you're going to have built the car in good time, but have enough slack to react. There will be problems along the way, and so you want to push hard, set challenging targets, but you also need to be able to react and allow time to solve the inevitable problems. So I've wandered a bit on.
No, because I mean, I know that leads us into a question that I really want to ask as a massive nerd, talking about reacting to problems in advance of the deadline. Big rule change in Formula One coming up in 2026, necessitating brand new power units.
Yeah.
What can you tell us about that with yourselves at Mercedes HPP and how that's been when the development started and what that's been looking like?
I can only really talk about what's in the public domain, and I'd say don't believe everything you see in the press of what's been spoken about on the power units. Is it often the case? The rule framework for the 2026 power units was released, I think, in Monza, so September 2021, and then shortly afterwards, it was early 2022, where the first version of the rule set was formally released, and the rules have been evolving ever since then. So all of the power unit manufacturers are developing for 2026. I imagine would have started at a similar time. The big change for 2026 from the current power units is the shift to a fully sustainable fuel. So it's 100% sustainable fuel in 2026. The power split is now 50-50 roughly between the engine and the mirror system. And we've lost the NGUH, which means one of the large sources of where we're harvesting energy around the lap is now gone, and that's also an aid. We've got to go back to traditional turbo engineering and how you work on turbo lag and everything else. So, wow.
So do you have any favorite memories of Formula Student that made you want to stay working with Formula Student and volunteering?
Not one in particular, but it was a whole process of doing Formula Student. So, as I said earlier on, I competed 2004 during my second year, and then in 2006 in my final year. But we worked all through placement in 2005, so it was kind of a 3-year continuation. And there's not many opportunities in life where you get to design, build, and then race the whole car from scratch. Obviously, so probably firing up and driving it around for the first time. So we were a relatively small team. It was back. Formula Student has got a hell of a lot more complicated than it was back then, but it's still the same fundamentals to do well. But we were, I think, 20 odd officially on the team, but there were 7 or 8 of us who actually did it. So I did design the chassis, suspension, various other parts around there. Was heavily involved in the building assembly. And so when we came to drive it for the first time, the team kindly said, "Dan, you first." So the firing it up and driving around something that we'd put blood, sweat, and tears over years to get to. It's still a moment I remember fondly. But then actually taking you out testing, going to the event, and then doing well till we came in 5th overall that year, and were second in the UK out of 70 odd teams competing there. A Brunton talk, so it was to have success at the other side of it. Not quite there of winning, and as John knows, I'm super competitive, but it was still we did very well, and so remember that very fondly. But so through that whole experience, the bite bit, and it's never left me, and so that stayed involved with now on the organising side ever since. But Formula Student was key to securing my first proper job after university. I did the thing that I always coach and say don't do. So managed to get first my degree, got that one, well done. Did well at Formula Student, did that one, great, well done. Completely did nothing about trying to secure a job afterwards because I was so busy studying and working on the car. So we were spraying the champagne and celebrating of doing one Formula Student, and then about a week and a half later, the reality hit of I've got no job, I've got rent to pay and everything else. But we had a change of faculty advisor at the university across that year, and so Howard, who's still at University of Hertfordshire now, I'd met him because he was at Brooks at the time. They were a fierce competitor for us, but we'd got to know him during testing, and so he'd started at Hearts or was in visiting. I popped in to just happened to bump into him, said that I was looking for a job. He didn't know anybody, but then that afternoon he got phoned by a contract agency. Do you know anyone who can do suspension design? And Howard went, oh, actually I do. They passed the details to me, and the day later I was driving up the motorway all the way to Bentley and Crewe. So I skipped the graduate recruitment phase completely and went straight in as a contractor in suspension design based on the strength of what I did on my placement, but also designing the suspension on the Formula Student car. So I was at Bentley for 9 months. And then from there, I moved to a company called Flybrid, which at the time was a startup business. Now started by two ex-Renault Formula One engineers, John Hilton and Doug Cross. So that would have been in 2006. In 2006, I was working at Renault in Enstone. Back then, they were working on advanced engine development to feed into the future power units. But then, similar to how we've been operating now on the current V6 hybrids, there was an engine freeze that was announced, and so they left Renault and started Flybrid, which was developing kinetic energy recovery system technology targeted for Formula One. And I joined them as employee number 2 or 3, I think. It was a small startup business. But John was actually the role I do at Formula Student now. He was chief judge at Formula Student at the time. And Doug, one of the guys who was on my team, he'd been the mentor for his final year projects on the exhaust system on a Formula Student car. So I'd met both of them through doing Formula Student. I didn't know that they'd started this business, but then when the advert came up in Autosport, I'd seen it, thought that looks like an interesting prospect, but it's a startup company. I'm at Bentley. It's going all right so far. But then I saw a separate article that in Race Tech that had been started by John and Doug, and then I joined the two dots together and instantly got the application letter off. And I spent 11 years at Flybrid. So I was a sole design engineer initially, and I was fortunate to join a successful company. So as the company grew, we worked on different projects. I progressed to being the only design engineer to being the senior design engineer, chief designer as we grew larger and larger. And then we were acquired by a company. At that point, I became chief designer for the group as well as Flybrid. And then in the final stages, I moved to a chief engineer role where I was looking after the early stage development, but both the design and going all the way through. And that, everything I learned on that journey in Flybrid, both in the approach of how to design and run an engineer project, but then also as we grew as a business and the projects I worked on, it was all learning in powertrain area, which although I'd never worked on engines, was all that meant I had enough of the right skills to then when the phone rang in 2017 of asking if I wanted to join HPP, then it gave me the right skill set to be able to start well here.
How is a journey?
Yeah, a long journey and still going.
Oh yeah, like journeys, that's what they're for, like constantly progressing and stuff.
Absolutely, yeah. I don't know what the destination is yet, but the journey.
I was about to ask the question. Where do you see us on 5 years?
Sometimes like a beach. And on this whole, there's been talk in the press recently of are we going to end the next generation of regulations early and go to a V10, and at the moment, the 2026 engines that we're developing run all the way through till 2031. So in 5 years' time, we'll probably be working on what the next generation of engines are already, because it'll be at the final year run out of 2026 spec engines of whatever come next.
So given your long journey and all of your experience, what tips would you give Formula students going into this year?
So much advice that I could give, and I think it's to try to be in general terms, because that Formula Student is not just the FS class cars. We've got teams who are competing in FSAI, you've got teams who are just doing concept class. So I think in general terms, you might be an established team, you might be an established team that's struggling this year, or you might be a relative newcomer. And so you're all pitching at different levels, but you should have some targets, know what you're aiming to achieve, and then be prepared and have a plan around how you're going to do that, and double check, triple check that what you're planning to do ahead of the event is there and in place. And then when you're at the event, make the most of it. It's very easy to get sucked into just in your area, but there's lots of other teams there. There's lots of other experienced engineers and companies and businesses to talk to, and just kind of absorb by osmosis everything else around there. And it might be your last year doing Formula Student, or you might be one of your first and you're coming back in future years, but those your direct learnt experience, what you'll see, how other teams operate, of what went well for others, or learning from your mistakes will stand you in good stead for the rest of your career. But most of all, try to enjoy it. It can be stressful, it's hard work, but you'll look out the other side, whether you do well or not so well, with very, very fond memories, I'm sure, at the other end.
And what is the biggest thing that students should be?
Well, if you believe the meme, read the rules.
I knew I'd get out of you. And also, when are we getting that DJ set?
Well, my initials are DJ, being Dan Jones, and so I think it was always inevitable. That was something I was going to explore as a hobby. If you guys can sort out the sound system, then I'll come on and play the tunes.
Well, we've got something to sort out. Yeah,
Yeah.
we've got to sort that one out.
We get everything else.
Yeah,
That's great.
challenge accepted. How does it feel to be like one of the leading figures in Formula Student? Because there are a huge amount of people involved that make it happen every year, but you're one of the more recognizable figures, especially through the meme that seems to just become. How does that feel turning up to the event, knowing that there are people that will know you simply for saying read the rules? It must be an interesting feeling.
Is it useful?
It is really useful.
I guess I'm kind of used to it after all years. It's been many years now. You walk around the paddock and I'll get people going, "Hi, Dan," and I'm like, "Do I know you? Have I met or spoken to you before?" But generally, I'm a reasonably, although you were saying about being a DJ, that's one of the hardest things on that was actually the performance element. I did it for the love of the music rather than being put in front of loads of people. And so I'm going to meander a bit, but one of the great things about Formula Student is I've got to practice doing things in Formula Student ahead of needing to do them in my career. And so when I was middle of my degree, I was a terrible public speaker, and it was something that I knew consciously that I had to get better at. And so now, over years of doing presentations at universities, guest lectures and things like that, but now to do the opening ceremony and the closing ceremony, go and stand up and present in front of thousands of students inside the room and the time. That's just one example. There's lots of things. It might not be the engineering skills, but there's staying involved in terms of how to organise the event, how to think about budgeting for items. And there's been lots of examples of where being a volunteer, you get the chance to have responsibility for something before it then hopefully comes along in your career as well.
And being so key in the organisation of Formula Student, what have we got to look forward to in 2025 and beyond? We had the anniversary a couple of years ago, and that field is becoming so much more divided between EV and IC, but there really is that overlap now where we're seeing more EV teams come through than ICE. Yet the ICE remain competitive, which is exciting to see. What's on the cards for Formula Student here in the UK going forward?
So I think we've seen the trend over the past few years of more and more teams moving from ICE to EV, but I think there'll be a threshold of a number of teams who stay ICE for a number of years to come. And we've facilitated that by having sustainable fuels at the competition now for this will be our third year of running sustainable fuels. And so we, as the IMEC and the Formula Student Organising Committee, we're technology agnostic. We're not trying to push an agenda that everything should be EV, but recognising that there's a pull from industry, there's an area that people want to get experience in. And so, hopefully we continue to see more of the teams that have migrated to EV, building up experience and having, getting through scrutineering more quickly and having more reliability on the running cars.
I'm really excited about those, and as always, it's a massive pleasure to talk to you. Insightful as ever, and I look forward to seeing you at Silverstone in July. And know that interrupted halfway through your speech by choruses of teams.
No, yeah, thank you. I have a nervous tick for that one already, and thanks Microsoft for calling something Microsoft Teams as well.
Oh crikey, that must be a triggering for every day.
Yeah, it's there. But yeah, thanks very much. You're welcome. Look forward to seeing you both at the event this year.